Hello, Western Civ 105 class. Welcome to week 6. We're just about done. You should congratulate yourself on all the hard work you've been doing. Remember, if you have any late work that we've agreed for you to turn in, you have until Wednesday to do it. So keep that in mind. This is because I'm going to run out of time to be able to grade everybody's late papers that we've already agreed to. If you and I have not communicated about late work, you don't just automatically throw it my way. I say that again. So if you feel like you need to turn in some late work and we haven't had this conversation, this would be the time for you to start writing me and communicating on, and let's see if we can fit that in still. I just want to say a few things about what's coming up. The discussion, I have us watch a lot of videos dealing with very important topics that have been going on within the Western world, mainly in this case Europe, but I'm also dealing with the United States. And the issues about refugees and about undocumented people crossing borders is a hypersensitive topic, but it's also the topic within Western Europe and Northern Europe and in North America and the United States. So there's no way to avoid bringing that up. And also, these are very polarizing topics that it's very difficult to get anything neutral on. I picked these discussions from Al Jazeera. Now, Al Jazeera has their own bias. They have a global audience, and a lot of their audience comes from Africa and the Middle East, and they're going to take much more sympathy towards the perspectives of folks from that region. But they don't hyper-editorialize. The one thing I don't like about American media is how condescending and snarky it is. Fox News and CNN and MSNBC, Rachel Maddow, all these cats, even Bill Maher sometimes, I mean the Comedy Central, everything is about kind of insulting the other side, and they're clearly biased 100%. And there's no nuance, and it's about showing you how dumb your opponents are. Now, I had a student that was seeing, that some of the things that I post try to make it look like conservatives or right-wing people are less educated and all that stuff. That's not what I'm trying to do, by the way. I don't see it that way. I have friends from all spectrums. But let's be honest, all of the media is snarky and condescending. I mean, Crowder, Ben Shapiro, Bill Maher, Rachel Maddow, like I said, you could even take Colbert. They're all kind of making fun of. And that's the issue that I want to address, is do we have bad history or not? So, that's the kind of perspective that I want to deal with. The videos that I post, I think at least help address in the best way possible where Western civilization and the way that the history is developing and the fundamental issues that are happening now, like where we're at. These videos do the best job of giving you an idea. Like I said, some of them are a little dated. They talk about Bernie Sanders and Trump. Well, Bernie Sanders and Trump are not as relevant as they were at the time, but they still are, because they represent some aspects of people who are against the establishment or frustrated with the establishment. But I just want to also just clarify some things. I spent 2 years ago, before COVID, I traveled the world. I was in 10 countries. I spent about 3 months in Europe and Western Europe and Northern Europe, mainly in Leiden, Netherlands. And then I spent 9 months in Southeast Asia. I was in Hong Kong during the protests there. I was, in Thailand, going back and forth as the controversial elections were happening with the military government. And I was in Cambodia. I was in the Philippines. And most of these governments would be considered authoritarian by our standards, non-democratic, not a democratic republic like we perceive of here. And I saw that there were governments that were authoritarian, that were left-leaning or they were right-leaning politically. So authoritarianism that we've learned about through history can happen regardless of the political spectrum that you're at. One thing that I want to point out is, like in the world, is, you know, that if you look at most countries that went communist, the majority of them never had democracy or representative governments, and many of them were exploited and colonized by the Western world. Vietnam was under the French. Cuba had a dictator before it was communist that the U.S. government supported. Russia never had really a history of representative government. China certainly didn't. We have that. Now in Western Europe, we had Hitler, we had Mussolini, we had Salazar in Portugal, and we had Franco in Spain, and we had General Pétain in France. These were all right-wing governments, and they all were dictatorships that were against democracy. So I ask you, what left-wing government in Western Europe and Northern Europe dismantled democracy? None. Now, that's a fact. Now, that's not me saying what ideas are better or not than others. But I only point out these things because in America, we're told that if someone like Bernie Sanders gets elected, we're going to go dictatorship-wise. And what I'm saying is it's within the Western democratic world and Northern Europe, historically, that's not been the case. And part of where I think it's difficult is the United States being so isolated. When I was in Europe, you see how much we don't understand about like what happened in Europe, even with World War I and World War II, even with Hitler. And so it's like, for me, I'm looking at all this now. I'm critiquing aspects of history, but that doesn't mean that I'm saying that the left isn't worth being critiqued. But I am talking about this overall issue of the refugees and this other history here. Okay, what we have is historical events that do make a case for why one group feels one way or the other. So let me back up for a second and say, some people who have the views that they have may feel like that these videos don't present a fair, they don't do a good job of making it clear why that they're presenting their views the way that they do. And so if you feel that way, please feel free to articulate that in the discussions. I'm hoping that you'll see that the discussions are more productive, that we can have healthy ones. I don't know if you all saw that Russell Brand and Ben Shapiro had a discussion, and it was very rational and very calm. And you know, those things can be done where people from different perspectives can do that. Ultimately, what I want you to realize is that history matters. It matters a lot. And how we understand history matters. In this country, a good chunk of people don't think that the U.S. Civil War was about slavery. Everybody who broke away, every state that broke away said that they're leaving for slavery. You can look it up. It's that simple. But yet we have these huge debates about that. This is the kind of stuff that drives me nuts. Now, I'm not into a campaign to vilify everybody from the South, and the North had its own set of complications. I'm just pointing out that this is a historical complex thing. So I'd argue the North wasn't necessarily trying to end slavery. The South thought that they were, and the North was against them breaking away because they didn't want them to secede. And then slavery ends up being the topic that ends up happening. But racism was on both sides equally. And so what ends up happening is we have like a polarizing event like a civil war, and we have both sides kind of, you know, the North is trying to act like they were defending one community the whole time and they were against racism, and that's not necessarily the case. The other side is trying to downplay the fact that it was about racism, but about slavery, but it was. And we get into these cultural wars. We're going to have cultural wars no matter what, but we need to at least understand the history correctly. So that's what I'm trying to do here. maybe a lot of you are like, Mr. Pollock, what are you rambling about? Well, I don't know. I wish we had these classes in person because I always like to engage with you all and get these discussions out together. But these are online classes, and it is what it is. So I hope you all have a great week. I hope you have found this class informative, and I will give you one more announcement before finals. But overall, this is your last toughest week. Finals will not be that difficult. This is the last tough week. Another cram core session, and then I wouldn't even worry about the final as much. Just this week. So take care, and we'll be in touch.